Saludos otra vez. This is Stephanie from Apex Languages with another Vocabulario Vivo. Last time I asked the question, how are you? And I'm going to continue that conversation by following up with, who are you? So far, we've learned how to say hello. Tell me how to say that again. Hola. And then we learned, how are you? How do you say that? ¿Cómo está? Or ¿Cómo está usted? How do you respond to that? If you want to say, I am well, you say, yo estoy bien. Estoy bien. And finally, you want to ask back, and you? How do you say that? ¿Y usted? That's quite the conversation you've got going so far. The next logical step is introductions, or in Spanish, presentaciones, presentations. Okay? What is your name? And you say that in Spanish, ¿Cómo se llama usted? ¿Cómo se llama? Repeat after me. ¿Cómo se llama? ¿Cómo se llama? ¿Cómo se llama? Remember, I did talk about the ege right there, that double L. Remember, it's not an L. It makes a Y sound. And again, that varies by region. So when I say it, I make it sound a little bit more like a J because that's the South American dialect. So in other parts of the world, you might hear como se llama. Whichever dialect you want to learn, that's entirely up to you. But you're going to hear me use the South American dialect. So como se llama. The verb here is llamar, and that means to call. It's the same verb that we use to call on the phone or to call someone from across the room. Okay, it has that same variety of meaning. Okay, and so how do you call yourself is basically what we're saying here. Now, last time I showed you this chart and we talked a little bit about the verb estar, how to conjugate the verb. And I want to continue working on that today. So you can see the two verbs here, estar y llamar. Now these two verbs are called AR verbs. There are three different types of verbs in Spanish, AR, ER, and IR. That just refers to the last two letters in the infinitive form. But we would normally accompany with the two, like to walk, right? That's the infinitive. So estar ends in an AR. And so with these endings, they follow a certain pattern. The ER and the IR verbs have a very similar pattern, but they're slightly different. Okay, so right now let's just focus on AR. Okay, so I told you last time that estar was a little irregular. And you can see here why. Llamar is perfectly normal. This is the standard that you want to follow. So, you compare that to estar and see, again, those accents, the Y after the O. But let's go through it. So, I, or yo, llamo, it ends in an O. So if you first person write I, ends in an O. You, tú, ends in an AS, so llamas. The formal you, usted, that we talked about, he, she, it. This is what is known grammatically as the third person singular. Okay, they all end in A. Okay, llama. We, llamamos, that's an amos, that one's a little longer. And then ustedes, so the plural you, that's formal, right? The plural you, and they, ellos y ellas, okay, that third person plural, those end in an, which is llaman. Now, that was the big chart. Really, at the beginning, what I when you're first learning a language, and these videos are designed for people who are just beginning to learn Spanish, if you haven't figured that out by now, okay? My first priority is making sure you get a lot of vocabulary and not overwhelm you with grammar. Okay, grammar will come later. You'll have plenty of time to master all of the different forms of verbs. But it's very easy to get overwhelmed when you're learning something brand new like this. So, we'll focus on learning lots of different words and just keep the grammar simple at the very beginning. So I'm only going to teach you for now, going forward for a while, yo, the first person, and the third person. So these are the forms we're going to focus on. Llamo and llama. Estoy y está. Okay. And the nice thing is that third person in Spanish also includes you. If you're confused, if there's any doubt, you can say, ¿Cómo está usted? ¿Cómo está él? Right? To avoid confusion. But most of the time it's understood by context, and so they'll only say ¿Cómo está? ¿Cómo se llama? Okay, so keep that in mind right now. Very simple. O ending, A ending. O ending means I, and the A ending means either you, he, or she. So let's go back to our conversation from before. What is your name? ¿Cómo se llama? Now, ¿cómo? That's the same como that was in ¿Cómo está? It means how. Okay, ¿cómo means how. And llama is from llamar, to call. How, call. So is there anything else that we're missing here? Say. What is the say doing here? Say is what's known as a reflexive pronoun. In English, the equivalent would be yourself, okay? So you can see this chart here. There are a couple different reflexive pronouns, not that many though, okay? So myself, be careful, this is not pronounced me, it's me, because remember the vowels in Spanish are always the same. A, an E is an A. Yeah, I know that's confusing, but it's always going to be the same. So me. So myself, I call myself is me. Yourself, if you want to be formal or informal, it's te or say. Himself, say. Herself, say. Ourselves, nos. Themselves, say. So let's look at this chart. Okay, again with those two forms that we're going to focus on. Yo me llamo is I call myself. Usted se llama, you call yourself. Él se llama, he calls himself. Ella se llama, she calls herself. These reflexive pronouns are a lot more common in Spanish than they are in English. So you're going to see verbs that require the reflexive, and sometimes you're going to wonder why. It's just a language thing, a culture thing. For example, to take a bath. In English, I'm taking a bath. Well, in Spanish, you would say me baño. I bathe myself. All right. And so here it makes sense. It's the same basic thing that we would do in English. A little weird, but we understand it, right? I call myself Stephanie, by my name. But expect to see a lot more of these, okay? And that's what they are. So, me llamo, se llama. Finally, we've got all the pieces. Let's get ourselves some answers, okay? Como, how, llama, call, say, yourself. So, ¿cómo se llama? How do you call yourself? Well, if my name is Stephanie, I would respond, me llamo Stephanie. Me llamo, me llamo, me llamo Stephanie. Okay? So again, Train yourself. Pay attention to the ending because it matters. Como se llama? Me llamo Stephanie. Let's practice. Let's see how well you were paying attention. Oh, review from last week. Hola, ¿cómo está? How would you respond? Estoy bien, gracias. Don't forget your gracias. Don't forget your thank you. ¿Cómo se llama? Me llamo. Put your name. Okay, me llamo Stephanie. Finally, ¿cómo se llama la profesora? Profesora is professor, teacher. So, ¿cómo se llama la profesora? I already told you that. Se llama Stephanie. So remember, what are you called, right? Your name is the same as his name is, her name is. Se llama Stephanie. Her name is Stephanie. Hope you learned something, guys. Thank you, as always, for watching my videos. Find more at apexlanguages.com and have a wonderful rest of your weekend.